Welcome, everybody. Today, I have another fantastic guest. Ladies and gentlemen, Luis Hernandez. He's a professional figure skater since 1994. So you can do the math and you can, see how long ago he started. Anyway, right now, he's got another mission going close to his mind, to his heart. And what is worth mentioning in here is that he's a six-time national champion in figure skating. So he's definitely a champion that we want to learn from. Luis, it's very nice to have you here. Thank you very much for being with me.
Oh, thank you, Michael. It's a pleasure to be with you, and I'm excited for our chat today.
Thank you very much. Well, Luis, can you tell me, please, me and listeners, how your journey started? What was the beginning?
Wow. Okay, yes, the beginning was really early on. I was about 2 years old, and I was really a baby, of course. And my sister at the time was competing in figure skating at the local rink. This was an ice rink that was in Guadalajara, Jalisco, in Mexico. And my mother would take me to the ice rink to watch my sister practice every day since 2 years old. And I really grew up watching it. And right away, I was very curious. I can remember very vividly, even at 3 years old, watching the skating and just being in awe and being so amazed by what these people were doing. And so by the time I was about 4, I was starting to skate on the sidewalks and like around the ice rink while my sister practiced. My parents didn't really think that they would put me into that sport, especially in Mexico. And at the time, they didn't really think that that was a sport for boys. So they really were like, okay, he can skate over here on the carpet and just outside on the floor and have fun, but he's a little bit, who knows what's wrong with him. Uh, so they never really pushed me to skate, but I just started to fall in love more and more and more and more with it. And eventually we moved to the United States, and I still hadn't gotten my turn to skate. But when we moved here to the US, many years passed, and I was around 8 years old, and it was my birthday, and I begged my father to take me to figure skate, to ice skate. And finally he said, okay, sure, let's take you to skate for your birthday and go have fun. And so I got on the ice that day. I remember very vividly, and I wouldn't get off and I wouldn't leave the ice rink. I was there from 1 p.m. to 9:30 p.m. that night, just skating and skating and skating. They couldn't get me off. And it was my birthday, so they were like, okay, we can't, what do we do about this? And so from that day on, that passion was, I finally got to feel and live it. And that was really the beginning of everything, because from that day on, I begged my parents to go back every weekend. I begged them to put me in lessons, and they were hesitant, and they didn't really at first say yes, but eventually I convinced them because they saw the love and passion that I had for this crazy sport. And that's how it all started.
Well, that is an amazing story because being inspired as a baby, that is something.
Yeah.
We all have this as kids, that we want to be someone and we want to do the specific job, and majority of us ends up in completely different profession. But you did it, and I was going to ask you about what really inspired you to do it, but now, all I have left to ask is, well, why professional? Why not doing it just for fun? And then I know, I don't mean it saying that, but that's what people say. Why not getting a real job?
That's a great
Well,
question.
I hear it all the time in terms of coaching. Why don't you get a real job?
Absolutely. That's a great question. I I was all obviously very stubborn since I was a kid, very stubborn. And I really, at that time in my life, I mean, okay, when I started to be a competitive skater, where I started to actually qualify to national championships, get my first international invitation to compete, I was around, I would say 14, 15 years old. And that's obviously even before that, at 13, I was starting to professionalize my career, right? Like I was already intensively training. But in all honesty, at that point, nothing in life could captivate me more than the discipline of setting a goal in skating, striving for it, and I just got so much satisfaction from it. To From the work, from all the things that encompass being an athlete, a professional athlete. It was something that I fell in love with very quickly. And I was also a great student. I was doing great in school. I was always in advanced placement honors classes, but that never gave me the satisfaction that skating was giving me. And so that's when I really started to think like, wow, this is something that where I'm going to put my effort and my focus into. And it was that feeling of satisfaction that nothing else could give me that led me to want to pursue that as a career.
Well, so that's great because that's connection of everything. That's well, doing great at school. That's important, of course.
Of course.
Being great in a sport, specific sport, dedication, passion with it, and the stubbornness as well. And I believe it paid off because having well 6 titles of a national champion, it's a lot. And
Yes.
I know a lot of people. I know as well a lot of athletes, and well, there is just a few of them that actually have national championships or Olympic medals as well. So you are in this small group of those who got really high. How did it feel back then when you won the first championship?
Well, Michael, it's a long story because before I started to win my titles, I actually had a very dark moment in my career where I experienced very severe injuries to my hips, and that was very early on. I was in my early 20s, late teens, early 20s, and that I thought my career was over when that happened.
Hmm.
And I was very lucky. I came home back to San Diego to a rehabilitation center for athletes where people with injuries, all types of athletes, triathletes, basketball players, would work with therapists there to restore their bodies. And I was very lucky to meet a very special person. Her name is Pamela Minix, and who's actually somebody that I'm closely working with now in what I'm doing. But anyways, she helped me to heal those injuries, to be able to overcome, you know, all of the mental health issues that I also acquired throughout
Mhm.
that short span of my career. And from that place on, I was able to return to skating with a different point of view perspective and then start to win these national titles. So really, it was such a uh, redemption is what I like to call it. It was redemption for me to be able to come back and from a very dark place and make something of the sport that I loved and the career that I had invested so much time and so much dedication
Mhm.
to. So it's really priceless. I don't know how else to say it. It's something that I that I hold very high esteem for myself about.
Well, so technically we can say that it was harder than for everyone else because you got to the certain level, then you went below because of the injury, and then you came back as a champion. That's really something. That's big.
Yeah,
Fantastic.
that's exactly it.
So I believe the first championship after that was special, like you said. What about the other times when you won? Was it the same feeling, or was it just, oh yeah, just another one?
Never. It was just another one. It's what it was. They were different because every year that I won, there was a different challenge and a different personal growth that I endured. So, one year I may have had some really like personal issues, maybe with a relationship that I had to balance. I had to say like, okay, I have these issues, but I also have this goal. And so it was always a balance of, different things in different years. So it was always a different feeling. And it was always like this. The only thing that stayed persistent throughout every win was the feeling of overcoming who I was yesterday and becoming a better version of myself every time. That's the only thing that stayed the same. But they were all different and they all have different meaning and they all had different feeling. Um, and one thing that I can say is that it did teach me kind of, I would say it almost like a formula. There is a formula. It was a formula. Like I knew how to get myself to that place where on that day I could do the best to what I could do at the time, and I knew how to get myself to that place
It's
to
like
be in that zone when I needed to be.
the
And
mindset, the state of mind that can get you there. Yes.
yes, that's correct. That's correct. And I knew like, I knew when that date was, and it used to be in November, that my national championship. And it was like I knew that that was the date where I needed to perform to the best of my abilities, right? So whatever that means, I knew how to get myself there.
So it was more about competing with yourself rather than other athletes there. Yes.
100%, always.
Fantastic.
Never,
And
never. If I thought of another athlete, it was to be inspired, but never with the thought. No, that just never, in those years, it never crossed my mind. It was like inspiring. It was like, oh, how fun that I get to be alongside this guy that's also trying their best, their hardest to be someone, to be the best, to be their best version. That's the only thing that ever crossed my mind regarding competition.
fantastic. That's very very important message. The right mindset and well, just trying to get as good as you can. That's very important. And I know it's not just in sports, it's everywhere. It's in business, it's in life. Just to wake up and do better than yesterday. Thank you very much for this thought. I do
Mm.
appreciate it a lot. And well, just to ask, if you think about those well competitions when you want right now, does it feel the same, or it's a different feeling? It's just a memory, or you just live the moment again when you think of it?
Mm, now I just have gratitude and appreciation because those moments gave me and are giving me opportunities that I would have never had I not had them. So I
Mm,
look back on them, I think, oh, that's great. And I say, like, you set a goal and you got what you wanted, but it's over. It's the past for me. And now in this present moment, all I have is gratitude and appreciation for
fantastic.
the opportunities that it's given me. That's really it. Life goes on, and you can't stay back there. You can't be like, oh, I won this and I made that, and it's beautiful and it's great, and I'm just appreciative of what has given me now today.
That's great to know. The appreciation. That's what well all the well coaches, spiritual teachers talk about all the time. Appreciation, and looks like it works. But saying life goes on, I wanted to ask you about this mission that you're on right now, the one that is close to your heart that I already mentioned at the beginning. Can you tell us more about that? What are you doing right now professionally?
Absolutely. So as I mentioned, in my early 20s, what happened with my injuries and suffering, I was having mental health issues and just diverse personal problems at that time. Um, Meeting my good friend Pamela, who I mentioned earlier as well, who was working out of that rehabilitation center. I learned a new way of of being, of how to be in sport. I learned a whole new way, a healthy way for myself, and I learned what it means to be a wholesome athlete, you know, a full whole athlete, in that time where I was recovering. And through that whole experience, I realized that a lot of the experiences that I had lived, up to that point of the injury were really experiences that weren't normal. They were not, they weren't healthy in any way. And it was really that I had been in a culture that unfortunately didn't have the education, that doesn't have the education, that couldn't support me the way I needed to be supported. And that led to a lot of, I would call it, I don't wanna, I would just say that it led to me not not knowing how to support myself mentally, physically, emotionally, because that wasn't part of the training process. And so with that said, you know, that whole time after my recovery, I started to see all of the holes that are in sport when it comes to athlete wellness and mental health. And I started to have really deep conversations with people and professionals about, what is happening in sport. And it's, as you may all know, it's a big issue right now, the topic of abuse in sport. Mental, physical, emotional, and sexual abuse is rampant. And so upon retirement, I decided to dive into what I'm doing now, and I created a company, and it's called Lasso Safe, and our mission is to empower the leaders of sport by creating safe environments for athletes, whether that's a sports community, a sports center. We provide accreditation to these facilities and communities and education to help them prevent any instances of abuse. And that's really where I'm focused on right now, is to bring wellness, to bring safety to athletes and also to the leaders, because the real big issue at hand is that leaders don't know how to support the athletes. They don't really have the education. They don't know. It's just not part of the culture. And now we're providing those answers through our accreditations, we have a web portal that gives athletes the ability to press a button on a website and report any instance of abuse that they might be experiencing. And really that gives the leaders also a place where they can safeguard them, where they could really be accountable and responsible to dealing with anything that might be going on in their community.
That's fantastic, and it's very important. You see, I myself work a lot in terms of mental health, stress management, and it's not just executives and high management. I work with a lot of different people, and I know that that's a part of our life that it's missing in many places, especially for men. Women get more open, and they brave enough to talk about what bothers them, but guys just keep it to themselves until it just explodes. So technically what you are doing, you're just making sure that athletes stay under the healthy pressure that makes them get better.
That's absolutely correct. And that's
And
because that's what sport is, right? Sport is here
yes,
to make us thrive, to push us forward, to build us up, right? Not to break us down. And that's all I want for athletes. I want athletes to have that, let that be their home, let that be where they create themselves.
fantastic. So what would you recommend to athletes who are actually victims of abuse, any kind of abuse? I know that anything might happen. Sometimes it's just a coach that is not prepared to train someone, well, from the mental point of view and support athlete, they just keep on pushing. What would you recommend to athlete who actually feels under pressure, who is being abused? What they should do if the club they are training
I,
at is not well connected to your website, to your network?
I think, Michael, that's a beautiful and great question, because you said that right away, and I thought, absolutely. And firstly, I want to say and touch on one point, and that's that many athletes, and many times, including myself as a young athlete skater, you're not aware that anything is even happening to you.
Oh.
And I think that's really important to point out, that the minute you start to question a behavior or something going on, that's when you need to take a deeper dive inside and say, okay, why am I feeling this way? And really question it. Because many times, and it's nobody's fault at this point, that's just the culture that we're living in. Many
Yes.
times abuse is happening, and it's all it's not even done purposefully. It's actually sometimes just unintended, but it's just so ingrained in the culture that people that are so in it, like I was a kid that was isolated from the whole world, and that was my life, that was my normal, right? And I didn't even know what was happening to me until I was basically needing surgeries at 19, 20 to replace my hips. And it's like, oh, something is really wrong there. That's not normal. That shouldn't be happening. The type of comments that were being made to me, like, you're too big, you're too small, you're too like, that's not normal either. So really, I think my biggest advice is that if an athlete firstly is feeling any sort of discomfort in any situation, that usually means something is there, and to really not let it just pass you by, because it could, just letting it go can really affect the rest of your life. And
Exactly.
that's,
And
yeah,
well, putting up with it doesn't mean that you are tough and you are better. It just simply means that, well, you're taking a risk that it's actually unnecessary.
yes, that's
Mhm.
correct. And actually, that's really I'm not going to speak about it one last time, just because it ties into this. When I spoke of our app, or of our button, that's also education for an athlete. We have a questionnaire that lists behaviors and things that might be happening, and an athlete can be like, oh, I didn't even know that was
Mhm.
a form of abuse, right? So like, that's really what I'm giving back. That's when I created this company, and what I'm doing. I'm just giving that back, like a place where we can even make the community aware of things happening to them where they didn't even know this was wrong, right? And it also gives the leaders of sports centers, the owners, the facility managers, also gives them a place where they can actually stop this culture from cultivating, right? They can actually say, like, oh, that's happening. It might be very small scale right now. We can take control of this. We can actually protect our community and the center from this escalating to something major, and from it becoming a crisis. So anyways, what I'm trying to say at the end of the day, if an athlete is, they feel something is wrong, they know, or they've been a victim to abuse, they're it's never worth, like, I know that sometimes you feel alone, and you feel, because I've been there, you feel alone and like powerless, that there are people out there that are here to help you, and you can find resources, including Lasso Safe, that are here to protect you, and that are not going to affect your outcome of your career. That we're here to serve you in the way that you need to be served. And so that is my biggest advice.
Exactly. And thank you very much for that, because that's the main thing, to admit it to yourself first and then ask for help.
That's correct.
And well, like you said yourself, it doesn't mean that your career is going to end right here. It's just going to progress, but you're going to enjoy it.
Exactly. Exactly.
I have similar issues in a business world, so it's the same everywhere. So guy, listen, if you recognize that there is a problem, talk about this.
That's correct.
Let's add this to the message. Talk about this. If you realize that something is wrong, if you see that something is wrong and it applies to someone else as well, talk about this. Because people often don't realize that they are being mistreated. Like Louis just said, where athlete thinks, well, this, yeah, it is happening, but isn't it normal? No, it's not. Well, fantastic. It's very important message, very good, and I'm glad that things like that are happening. I'm definitely going to do anything I can to spread the word
Thank you, Michael.
and help as many people as I can. So I believe we're going to have another chat at some point. But now, as we talk quite long already, Luis, if someone wants to get in touch with you, whether it's athlete, club owner, coach, anyone, how they can do it, where they can find you on social media or internet generally?
I think for now, the fastest place would be through my LinkedIn. I think you can find me on LinkedIn, Luis Hernandez, Lasso Safe. You could also visit the Lasso Safe website to see what we're up to, lassosafe.com. And really, that's, I think, the two best places for now where you can find me. And if you want to see some of my skating, it's there on YouTube, and I'm sure it's out there somewhere, but I don't know where you can find that. I mean, it's there, but I don't
Okay.
really look.
So it's not that you have your YouTube channel?
No, I don't.
No.
I'm very focused on what we're doing with the company, and I
Okay.
don't. Yeah.
Well, that's great. In this case, I'm going to include in the description below a link to your LinkedIn profile and to your company's website, and people just can go from there and find you and have a chat about this,
Absolutely.
whatever the case is. And well, last final question that I always ask people: tell me if you if you were going to give just one piece of advice, just one, to a young person who decided to become professional athlete, what would it be?
Woo, that's a good one. My advice would be to absolutely follow your dream, your passion, but to never forget along the way the value of who you are just as an individual and as a person. To never forget that. And that never changes, whether you're first, whether you're last, whether you're in the middle of the pack. You are always valuable, you're always worthy, and you're always worthy of the best and of love, no matter what. And that's my biggest
Fantastic.
advice.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. That's very powerful, especially if it's coming from the national champion, not once, not twice, 6 times. It's always you, and it's always important what you do. And like you said before, you only racing with yourself. You are your only competition. Fantastic, Luis. Thank you very much for today. Thank you very much for your time. Well, and I'll be looking forward into chatting with you again, hopefully soon.
I would love that. Thank you so much, Michael. I really had a great time. Thank you.
So do I. Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.